Welcome to the Newswire with me, your host, Tyler Dickerhoof. Today, joined by producer Alex, like usual.
Happy
Here's the
Monday.
first question. First question, Monday, right after Thanksgiving holiday, do you have a food
Ooh.
coma?
I don't, thank God. I
All right.
tried my best to,
Okay.
not eat the salty stuffing. Sorry, family, whoever made that salty stuffing
It
couldn't
was a little
eat
too
it all.
salty.
A little too salty.
Our stuffing, Kelly made stuffing was really good. My wife made some stuffing, like traditional bread, celery, onions, that type of thing. So I think there was maybe some sausage in it too. And then my mother-in-law made like a sweet potato and cranberry. And what I were telling was like, oh, dude, like we need to blend these two together because it was like perfect. I mean, it
Ultimate
was, and it
stuffing.
was like you put it on the plate and you blend it together. It was amazing. Here's the question I have for you as well: is do you have any leftovers still left over,
Yes.
or do you purge? Like when do you purge the leftovers?
After today, because Thanksgiving was Thursday, so I think we go one more time, see if anyone wants
Okay.
anything, and then they go in the garbage.
Okay.
How about you?
All right. I think it'll be about the same. I think today it'll get cleaned out, and yeah. So
Knock it out of there.
that'll be it. Yeah. But let's talk about we last week we talked about Black Friday. Black Friday is come and gone. We have Cyber Monday. We've yet to see any reports based upon sales. I haven't seen anything early, people commenting one way or the other.
Nothing.
But there's a whole lot going on. Stock market opened today after the holiday, kind of shortened trading. Didn't see much the end of last week, which is normal. But now we have stock market down. We have the Fed that's going to come out with an announcement here shortly. Interest rates that's been back and forth. Are they going to lower it, keep it the same? And we have it's a time of like financial, everything. You have crypto that's selling off. Bitcoin is going lower. You have Ethereum, most of those main, I would say, cryptocurrency items that are selling off. And just kind of like, man, financially, it's interesting. We talked a little bit about that before. I want to throw in something else, because I think this is very telling. Over the weekend, my son had his first basketball game of the season.
Mhm.
And I was talking to a dad whose son is also on the team, who I know really well, who is the manager of I would say, a mid-luxury dealership. So if you think of mid-luxury, I'm thinking, like an Audi, like
Acura.
a BMW, like a Lexus, that type of standing. Okay.
Yeah.
And the family of dealerships that he is a part of, they have a lower end, like a Scion, like a low end vehicle. I would say even a little bit lower in Toyota. I'm not giving the names of them to protect his identity. And then they have a normal kind of truck brand. You think about a GMC, a Ford, that kind of. And then they also have a very high end dealership as part of. Like I'm talking like high end luxury,
Like Rolls
pinnacle
Royce.
luxury vehicles. Not quite that, not quite that high, but like the Porsche, the those type of vehicles. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to him. I'm like, dude, how's it going? He goes, this is my worst month ever. I've been a manager, I think it's been 7 or 8 years. He goes, worst month ever. Okay. Interesting. He goes, yeah, just our brand, is a mid-luxury, and usually it's people that are like, we have vehicles that are high like status vehicles that are just sitting here that people aren't buying. The upper luxury, normal sales. The low end, normal sales, a little bit lower. And then the normal everyday utility vehicle, SUV, truck, that type of thing, they're off a little bit, but they do their normal business.
Right.
And so it was very interesting on the heels of, I think you and I have picked this up, that autos, has been a little rough. Yeah. And when you see the market that is taking the heat, it's the people that, I'd like a new car, but I don't need one. So I'll go, I got 50, 60,000 miles. Like I'm over it. I'll go get a new car. Right.
Yeah.
Those type of, it's that thing, as opposed to a lower end is like, I need a car because I have to have something, or I need a truck because I have to have something, or I don't care. I'm going to go buy myself the top of the line luxury, that's not a Rolls Royce type thing, because I can. And so with his dealership in the middle of that, it was very interesting for him to say how slow it's gotten, because to me, that's an indication of where in the economy it is tight.
It
You
is
want to,
time. I mean, there's so there's so many. Just to like list a few. We were talking this morning about what we should discuss, and just sending some articles back and forth. And you brought up this kind of money management, fiscal, spending, all this kind of stuff, and where people are at. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because my wife and I are talking about the same stuff here, and it's like you have potentially this Venezuela crisis, right?
yeah, there's another thing.
Ships are moving in. When the boots, if boots land on the ground there, it'll be the first time I believe we sent troops somewhere since Iraq, which would cause, I think, at least that week, a sharp decline in any sort of markets. You have quantitative tightening stopping, quote unquote, today, and the Fed's supposed to speak about what that looks like, rate cuts going into QE. Now, that doesn't mean everything's all great and dandy. I think it means quite the opposite. Things aren't
Well,
looking.
I think what it points to is have a strategy. And that's kind of what I shared with you as I was thinking about things that I've learned over the last 20 years, going through 08, 09 business things of like, dude, these things come and go and they're fine. Just have a strategy.
Yeah.
And, instead of business as usual, I want to pinpoint one other sector that I picked up over the weekend that is struggling, because I think it's kind of an indicator of something else.
Hold on, let me try to take a guess.
Okay.
What is probably struggling? Or give me one
It's a
hint.
clothing. It's a clothing
Okay.
type item.
It's a clothing item. Shoe sales?
Yeah. Shoe sales have tanked.
Okay.
Like, people can't get rid of shoes. Like,
really?
I saw a couple articles where they're talking about, you have the Jordan, the Air Ones, the Yeezy, all of these, like, I would say designer shoes that have become in vogue the last 5 years, right? And maybe a little bit longer, but it's like, I remember watching the show Billions, and he gave everyone like Jordans. Like, that became just a iconic statement for a generation. Maybe we didn't have Jordans when we were growing up, but now we have all of these designer shoes that you can buy, that you can get customized, that are like, you can get those for people, right? And the article was talking about how, typically they're limited release. They'll go to like stock X, and they're hard to find. And they were talking about, I mean, these are $200 to $500 shoes oftentimes.
Yeah.
Not selling. I mean, they're like of stickers at different outlets, and they've massively reduced the price. And kind of the article that I read was talking about how they've saturated the market, and now the market is like cooked because there's too much in it. But it's a discretionary spend item that, for whatever group of people, they're not buying. Now, you could tongue in cheek the things that have gone on the last couple months. I'm not going to say why, but it is interesting that all of a sudden that market dried up. And that was the news.
I had an interesting conversation with a neighbor of mine. He was in the military for 30 years. And we were playing golf the other day, and I said, what are we going to do about this debt crisis that continues to increase? And because I hadn't really been paying attention to it, that story's kind of not really been in the cycle. It's been a whole bunch of other stuff. And I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on in Venezuela, but he's like, the one thing that could help us get out of it is war.
Yeah. That usually,
and then all of a sudden over the weekend, you're like, you see all these different aircraft carriers heading there, the airspace being shut down. I just feel like, man, with credit card, credit card limits being maxed out, the automotive industry, housing. I saw a recent article, 53% of homes in the country over the last year have decreased in value.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I
It's
get that a little bit of
yeah.
a, because of either volume build or from a, just where the market has gotten to that, I think that depreciate. But here's the part of it is I think going back, we've talked about this at times. I think the home pricing is very regional, very regional. You have areas where people are like, I moved here. I don't want to be here anymore. Like I have a lot of friends that moved to Austin, 3, 4, 5 years ago that have all left now.
Oh, where'd they go?
Back to California.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Whatever. It's interesting. I mean, you have people that have moved to Florida, right? And now all of a sudden, you have all these people flock there, and then all of a sudden, well, jobs. I picked this up. My home state is the number one growth state right now in the country.
Ohio.
Yeah. Now, I mean, a lot of that is jobs. They've done a tremendous job of like what was considered a dying state 20 years ago has like revitalized. And, last time I was there driving around, going visiting, like I could live back in Ohio. I don't know.
And is that Cleveland, Cincinnati, Metropolis?
Columbus.
Okay,
Yeah.
Columbus.
And then I think it's just spidered out from Columbus and, the center of the state. But hey, you got a national championship team that beats their longtime rival. I mean,
oh, what a great win.
People are happy.
Hey, I tuned that game on for all of maybe a quarter, and I was like,
Okay.
this game doesn't seem like it's going. It just seems like it's going one direction.
Yeah, pretty much. It was great. Hey, I mean, my buddy Robbie's a little sad. And I feel for him. I was really sad. Yes, I was really sad last year. We shared that moment back and forth. But here's what I want to share with the rest of our time. As you brought up a few things, and I was thinking as I was throwing things out to you, kind of strategies. The strategies that I've learned is, situations where I've, friends that have recently gotten laid off, conversations with a friend last week, her husband has been tech industry, has been, looking for a job for a year. You have another guy in marketing, in, mid-level leaders that are really looking for jobs. And so I know this can speak to them, but I think it can speak to, the person that I was 15 years ago. No, it's longer than that now. It is 17 years ago when I had a major setback in my business the day before Thanksgiving. And I wish I would have known then what I know now, but I had to go through that. As my friend Joseph says, you have to go through it to be able to see it.
Yeah.
And, here's a couple things that I want to share with you. So the first one is preserve cash. Wherever you're at right now, preserve cash. I know when we were young and we were into our house and, at that point we were making more money and we're spending, it's like, let's pay down extra on our mortgage. Let's pay down extra on those things. Bad idea. It was a bad idea because if it's a 30-year term note, yes, you could pay it off early, but you're better by refinancing it and like building that up in savings and paying it off. Because what you can't do with a mortgage is all of a sudden you have a medical emergency, a situation. Oh, I need an extra $2,000. You're not getting it out of your mortgage. So don't do that. Don't pay down extra on your mortgage. There's other ways to limit debt than using your mortgage. That's something I had to learn, right? Did it the wrong way. I don't know if you have experience there, Alex, but
I've never had a mortgage. I might get one day if we move back to New Jersey. It's a more expensive state, but I don't have that experience.
Yeah. The next thing is, if you are in a situation, bought a house in the last couple of years, rates are decently favorable now to where they have been. Refinance. Take an opportunity to refinance. It's, yes, there's a cost associated with it, but if you find yourself in a position right now, you have a job, maybe you're not sure where things are going, do it before you have to, right? If you've had a loan the last couple of years and say it's north of 7% interest, maybe depending on where the equity is in your house that you can refinance, take that opportunity to get to a more favorable interest rate so you can preserve more cash, especially if you're in middle management, you think, I hope I'm going to be in my job another 6 months, but I don't know. The best thing you can do is refinance now, because all of a sudden you lose your job or whatever, then that option is off the table. Yeah. So go ahead and do it the next thing is look at consolidating debt. Sometimes you'll have a school loan, usually low interest rates. You can have multiple different loans. It's like, hey, if I can consolidate some of those things to a much lower interest rate, say you have the equity in your house, you can consolidate, say, a used car loan into a mortgage loan where you end up saving interest to preserve cash. Again, utilize those tools because, again, the name of the game is preserve cash. The last three things that I have here is, even if you don't think you'll ever need it, and this I would encourage you, even if you never think you're going to need it, have a home equity line. Have it and never use it. One of the things I talked to friends that I learned working in agriculture and the dairy industry, agriculture goes very cyclical in regards to expenses and income. And so you really can't operate some of those businesses without having some type of credit line, because you're really prohibited from sitting on that much cash because of a tax point of view. But as well, it rarely ever extends out enough. And it's just easier to have a credit line that you never use. So if you do need to get it, it's there instantly, rather than, you have a business expense, or say, for example, you have a catastrophic home medical situation. It's like, do I have $50,000 available? Have the home equity line. You never have to use it.
Yeah.
And here's my encouragement. It's the opportunity is, it doesn't mean you can only, have one. Sometimes you can have two. And for the cost of maybe $150, $200 a year, to have the ability to have cash. For example, it's one thing to have the cash saved up. That's great. Have savings. But oftentimes what I would prefer to do is have it invested semi-liquid, so at least it's turning a return, and rather use a credit line, because then if I'm not using the credit line, my cash is at least working for them.
Yeah.
So
go
ahead.
That's a great one. That's one that we don't have, but maybe something I should look into, just in case.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, usually those revolving credit line, as far as, you get an annual renewal. And here's where I've learned, again, from a personal point of view, is have more than one banker. Have more than one banker. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I learned that in the dairy industry. I saw people do that. They were happy. I do all my business with XYZ Bank. You know what happens when XYZ Bank gets pinched? They call their notes.
Right.
So when you are overextended to one bank, you're in a boatload of trouble. But
especially if it's like a regional bank, right? Not like a national.
No, I would say it's irrelevant there, because usually what happens is national banks are held to a higher standard than smaller regional banks. So like, if you think Wells Fargo, National Bank, right? Bank of America, big, they would have restrictions on what money they can loan more than a regional bank, solely because of the amount of the money that they're, I guess, have in their fiduciary. They have a higher, I would say, they have higher standards than a regional bank that is a little bit more flexible. Here's the other thing I learned there too, is credit unions have much lower interest rates. Hands down, by far, credit unions, because they don't have to pay the federal, I don't know exactly what the name of the term of it is. Somebody in the comments will be able to share, but they don't have to abide by some of the federal regulations. So they can pretty much lend money whatever rate they want.
Yeah.
And so typically when it comes to car loans, those type of things, HELOCs, credit unions will be much, much lower, because they don't have the requirement from the federal level.
I think one of the last things too is credit cards. Make sure you pay off those credit cards.
Yep, that's the first thing. Open up a HELOC, get a home equity line, move all of your credit card debt there. You will save thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars by doing so, because it has a much lower interest rate. Lower interest rate. You're going from like 22 to 24% interest rate to oftentimes around 8. That's a big amount of money. So don't carry a credit, like that's something that my wife and we started early. So when I started with the company I started with, I had a business credit card. Well, with a business credit card, you could never you never carry a balance. You weren't allowed to corporately. Paid off every month. You do your expense reports. But here was the great benefit that they gave us as a perk. I got to use all of those points. So I could book travel using those points for myself. That was just a perk. And that's where I learned. And I also worked with clients that, here are large, businesses. I mean, large dairies, they're doing, couple $1 million a year a month in transactions. And there were some people that I know, they would do all of their expenses as much as they could on credit cards. Gave them a little bit of flexibility. It's like, the great thing, when you understand it, if I buy something today, December 1st, depending on the credit card cycle, I may not have to pay for it until January 11th. That's 50 days of money. That's that when you're talking about $1 million a month, that's a big ebb and flow. The great thing about it is between all of the points, travel miles. So I know friends that would go on great vacations every year solely by the points their business would accrue in just normal sales. And what they would do is sometimes if there was extra, they would allow their employees, some of their employees, they'd send them on a trip. And it was like, take advantage of it. And, that's something that my wife and I continue to do. We will put as much as we can on our either business or personal credit. They get paid off every month. I don't know the last time that we carried a balance. It's probably more than 15 years plus, because we just don't. Now, do we use other, yeah, we do those things depending on how our businesses are ebbing and flowing. But utilize it as a tool rather than be afraid of it. And that's something right now actively working on teaching my kids.
Yeah. No, this do you remember that it was a commercial in like the early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s that always stuck with me. It was a guy and he's like, I just got a new house, a new car, a boat, this and that. And you know how I paid for it? I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. And it was a hilarious commercial. And I was just looking this up. I'm going to share a screen real quick. We just hit a new all-time high for Americans in debt. This came out a few weeks ago, but let me share a screen. This is an article from ABC News. American household debt hits a new record high according to a report. Total household debt reached 18.59 trillion from July through September of this year, up 197 billion from the previous quarter. Overall debt levels are up 4.4 trillion since the end of 2019, just before the pandemic recession. And it just kind of goes over some figures. I'm going to pull up in this other screen here real quick. There we go. Boom. So you can look at it here on this chart, how much has gone up quarter over quarter. And so it's here. And this is, I mean, I don't know if this is going to this seems like it's continue to rise, but I mean, we're probably speaking to most people, talking about this debt problem that most people are being hit by. So getting out of debt, Tyler, if most people are in debt, it's credit cards. And then
do you want me to put on my Dave Ramsey hat? I mean, here's one of the things that I would say I differ than Dave Ramsey in this concept is, debt can be a tool. And, it's one thing. Yes, you could go to the adage that the debtor is in service to, you're always in service to your debt. And that is the case. But that's also, where we live ourselves, how we live in regard to housing, so forth and so on. It's become very difficult for people to, I would say have a home, because of the tax ramifications, everything else, without incurring some type of debt. Right. And it's, sometimes there are family situations where you can avoid it. Great. That's not most people. Right. And, say you've done well as far as playing the market. Now at one point you had a mortgage. Now all of a sudden you're into a situation where, yes, you have the money saved up, so forth and so on. You buy a house cash. Where I'm going with this is don't be afraid of it. Understand it's a tool. Now, where people get afraid of it usually is where I think they end up putting their head in the sand. It's like, I have no choice. Yeah, you have a lot of choices how you can manage your debt. We just talked about them. You can look at refinancing your home, consolidating some of the loans there, do debt consolidation. Right now, banks are yearning for new business. They're starving for new business. So you can work that where you can use opportunities to say, all right, how do we make sure that we preserve cash? Again, cash is king. If you can service the debt, that's how you get forward, right? Then when it comes back to how do we get out of this, debt situation? Well, classic Dave Ramsey. Spend less than you make. There you go.
Stop spending stuff on things you don't need that no one else cares about.
Here's a part of that. And this goes from us. We are entitled to nothing. Well, no, you don't deserve anything. And, here's the other part is like, yes, you can cut, and it's all right. Do I need Netflix? Do I need Hulu? Probably not. Cut those things back, right? Even if you're in a situation like things are fine. Hey, go through and kind of audit what things don't I need. And where I found, especially with an age of teenagers, is sometimes they're spending money and they just don't understand the ramifications. Like, whether it's common practice, this or not, or what you think, oh, I would never throw that away. Whereas depending on their personality, whatever, they would just throw it away because they don't understand the value of retention. I remember my grandmother, who was born in 1912, never threw away wrapping paper.
I bet.
Like in Christmas gifts, she would open it up, make sure it didn't tear and like save it because that's what her family did. Reasonable, understanding what she grew up through. Now, dude, Christmas, there are bags and bags and bags of trash. It's like, all right, do we really, I understand the value. So where we're coming back to is spend less than you make. Now, here's the other one that I think is coming of age again. Negotiate for what you're worth. Like there's an opportunity, and sometimes corporately it means I have to leave my current job to another job to get a pay increase. Yeah, sometimes you need to look at those things, and that's reality. Number two is sometimes that means I have to look at an additional source of income. Like to my wife's chagrin, she kills me. She's irritated by it. These cows out here, yeah, I make a little bit of extra money on them. A little bit, not a lot. I'm not getting rich, but at the same point, it's a hobby that I can make a little extra money some way, sometime going forward. And again, looking those opportunities, what are things that you can do to make a little? I remember, years ago, it was, we had friends Etsy store. That's when we got involved in network marketing. Now with influencer sales and marketing, those opportunities are there, especially if you're inclined to that kind of stuff. There are opportunities more today than ever to make a little extra money and just be willing to do it and dive into it. And I think the part of like where we're getting, and we see this with our kids is, getting paid for your time is one thing. Leveraging that is another. And, as we experience that, learn that ourselves, I think that's an opportunity for a new generation, but as well, it's, I think the idea that wherever you're at, there's a way to make more money. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the poly jobs, the people that have more than one job. All right, there's a way to go about it. But, every downturn has created massive opportunity. We're in it again. Are we going to be creative? Or are you going to sit and just say, woe is me? Or, man, I can get out of debt. I can, look at different opportunities. I can, here's the last thing that I wanted to share. And this is for people, especially in that middle management, where I've seen so many organizations cut their development budget. Here's what I know. If you don't invest in yourself, no one else will. So if your company's not investing in you, they're not giving you opportunities to learn and grow, be around people from other industries. That's the greatest way to find out what's available out there. So be willing to invest in yourself. Be willing to, find, hey, I want to learn this skill. I want to be able to develop here. And sometimes all that takes is buying a book. Sometimes that's all it is, $15 to $25 to $30. Buy a book, learn, apply it. Buy a book, learn and apply it, and really focus in on what area do you want to grow in.
Yeah.
If you invest in yourself, and I've heard this by so many people, if you legitimately invest in yourself, it will always pay back. Always.
100%. Tyler, I have one last question for those. Maybe there's a group of the audience and people listening that they've done well. Maybe they have a bunch of cash they're just sitting on. They're waiting for this downturn for opportunities. Do you look at it that way of hey, I recognize that we're in a downturn, maybe we're hitting a bottom, I have some cash. Do you allocate that cash somewhere? Do you buy small businesses? Do you buy real estate? Do you buy bonds? Do you play the market? Like, do you have any sort of like advice that you implement in it when you do actually have some cash that you want to deploy?
And man, that can go so many different directions. And I think that's where what the best thing that I've learned is be willing to invest where you're comfortable. Not where is the, oh, my buddy said this is the greatest way to get a return. Okay. Some guy, I saw a video the other day and he was talking about how to make money, 93% of the time on the roulette table. You put 10 on the last, you put like so much money on the last 10 numbers, then the first 10 numbers, you put some on red and black, and you said 93% of the time you'll hit. Well, 7% you won't. But if that is your comfort level, go for it, dude. I mean, again, each is to their own there. And I think that's where one of the biggest things that I've experienced is be willing to go where you're comfortable. And this is the other piece that I believe. When you're looking at those situations, be comfortable to lose it all. Be comfortable to lose it all. And if you're comfortable to lose it all, this is what it means. Then you don't need it to live on. And you'll also play the long game. There were people that even where we're at today in the stock market, just off of all-time highs, nearly 2x what it was just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
People would still tell you that the long play will probably pay out. I would say by what I've learned over the last 20 years is real estate is probably a better long play than the stock market. To what I've experienced, that's what I've been told. That's what I've seen from research.
That's good advice.
Again, real estate, we have real estate holdings. I would say most of our, we have it kind of diversified there, but that's where we look at opportunities personally. But I also know that that's not money that we can live on, that it's not really liquid. So it's if you're willing, if you have cash, you're sitting there, make sure that you have good cash flow to where you are not going to utilize that and need that. And then understand that I may be, quote unquote, I got to be willing to lose it. And if you're willing to lose it, then, it won't affect your everyday life. And I think that is something that I've learned. Again, that's not my expertise level. That's not where I spend more of my time, where to invest, which, those places that, I like the more of the management on the other side of it. I enjoy that kind of playing the shell game per se. As I tell my wife, I enjoy that. Like, that's fun to me, making it work. What is deciding, the best investment, we've, like I said, invested in some real estate. It's gone well. Some that hasn't, we've invested in some other places. I would say at this point in my life, I would say it's a mixed bag. We've missed some opportunities, but yeah.
It's life, right? That's life.
And I think that's where it comes back to really understanding, hey, understand that if you have to live on it, then it's not an investment. That's your everyday.
That's a good way to put it. If you have to live off the cash that you have acquired over the years and you can't look at it like, if this was gone tomorrow, would I still be okay? That's like a really good way to like see it.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's kind of like one of those, like, well, if it shows up on a balance sheet, great. If it doesn't, well, okay.
Yeah.
It's
good.
Thanks for being here, Alex. Thanks for everyone watching, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, wherever we're at. Thanks for being here today. Until next time, Choose lead with and back.